welcome you to the second of a two-part webinar series from Corstone and Sneha. We had called this webinar Post-Pandemic Resilience because it was scheduled when COVID cases were down and people had generally started feeling safer. But the new year has brought a surge in positive cases across India. As we begin this webinar today, the grim statistic of over 90,000 new COVID cases has been reported in the last 24 hours alone. These numbers are truly alarming, which makes it important to focus on ways to build emotional resilience in our frontline health workers who are so crucial to tackling this pandemic. Although most healthcare workers are psychologically strong and are trained to cope with illness and death, the recent pandemic has put immense stress on them, and it is essential that their mental health is prioritized. We have a very illustrious panel with us today, but before that, I'd like to start by asking the audience who are present here today an important question. Maintaining the mental and physical health of frontline workers is crucial for an effective response to a global pandemic. How much do we recognize the critical role that our frontline health workers play in fighting and in really tackling the pandemic effectively? This is a question we've thrown open to our participants. I look forward to the response because that will really guide the discussion and give us a sense of where we are going in terms of the support infrastructure that we have for our frontline health workers. So an overwhelming 99% say that maintaining the physical and mental health of frontline health workers is crucial for an effective response to a global pandemic. And that really speaks a lot to what we have seen on the ground over the last year, the stories coming from different parts of the country, rural and urban, of the enormous stresses that people have come under. And there is a recognition that unless we have an effective frontline force of health workers, there's really no way of surmounting any kind of disaster. So before we go on to the rest of the discussion, I'd like to introduce our panel to you. Let me begin with Gracie Andrew, a clinical psychologist by profession. Gracie is the Vice President and Country Director for Corstone in India. Corstone works in the area of emotional resilience and well-being. And together with Care India's Bihar group, Corstone has trained about 400 trainers at the block level in 14 districts of Bihar. We also have with us today Dr. Nerine Daruwala, who directs the Sneha program on preventing violence against women and children. She has over 20 years of experience working to prevent gender-based violence. Sneha worked closely with ICDS and public health workers during the pandemic. With us today is Dr. Aparna Joshi, a psychologist and psychotherapist by training. She's a faculty member at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Additionally, she manages 2 field projects. The first is a free helpline service called iCall, and the second is called Sukoon, which offers couples psychosocial counseling. We also have with us other speakers, but this, like I said, there seems to be a technical glitch, and as they join us, we will introduce them, and we look forward to really learning from their experience as well. We plan to have 2 frontline health workers with us, actually, one from Mumbai and one from Bihar, and hopefully they will be able to join us in the course of this discussion. We welcome all our speakers who've spent years working on the ground alongside frontline health workers and come to this webinar with a deep understanding of the challenges they face. Before we begin, here are a few pointers for all our participants. Please type your questions addressed to our panelists on the chat box. And due to time constraints, our speakers will be able to answer only some questions, but we will answer the rest via chat. So let me start off by asking you, Gracie, in common perception, common understanding, most people look at frontline workers as the backbone of the rural healthcare system in India. They're seen as key to advancing immunization, maternal child health initiatives, but really very few realize how crucial their role was during the pandemic, both in urban and rural settings. Could you talk about how critical a role they played during the worst stages of the pandemic, particularly in the rural areas where Corstone has a presence?
Okay, sorry. So on behalf of Cornerstone, Sneha, and all the panelists, I would like to welcome all the participants, all the people who are here listening to us today. And to answer your question, you're right. They are the backbone of our health system. And they have, in the early years, they mostly the frontline workers were involved in family planning, antenatal care, etc. They were the only, actually the main or the key people that were the link to the community, between a link between the health facilities and the community. But over the years, their role has expanded. And during COVID, they were really involved in so much of the work that happened at the community level, right from assisting with quarantine, contact tracing, providing information about COVID. And they had to go through so much of anxiety because they had to, they did not even have the right gear. They did not, some of them did not even have enough information about safety, and they had to get into the community and do the work that they were asked to do. So the frontline workers really played a large role during the pandemic. And we can see that even now, we thought it's over, but we know that now with the next surge, we're going to have we're going to depend on our frontline workers to really to get into the community and support the community and inform them and link them to the health services. So yes, they did play a major role.
In fact, Aparna, I wanted to ask you, in a sense, the pandemic has really highlighted how large the umbrella of frontline health workers is, beyond, I mean, traditionally they've been understood as community health workers in development sectors. Could you talk a little bit about when we talk about frontline health workers, what do they encompass? Who all are we looking at in terms of when we talk about frontline health workers in India?
Yeah, thank you so much. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me for this webinar and for flagging such an important issue also. Because I think we have been talking about everybody's mental health, but for this very vital group who is serving the masses, felicitated all the time, but invisibilized in a very, very different way by neglecting their own needs. So I just wanted to take a minute to expand the definition of frontline workers, and health workers is a very key component of that. But I was just thinking, who is a frontline worker? Frontline worker is a person who has a direct interface with people, who provide some essential services. And the world can stop during COVID, but they have to continue to provide those services, be connected to people, and perhaps maybe face the similar kinds of issues that the community is facing, but has to fight. They have to fight fearlessly. So I just realized during COVID, the traditional definition of a frontline health worker, which is typically, people working with government system or workforce working with non-governmental systems, got expanded. And we realized many more people joined the whole service, or relief work during the pandemic, be it the first wave, second wave, or now what is being called as the third wave. And these included many counselors, many other workers who were working with government programs such as child protection system, care and protection institutions, one-stop crisis centers, or the Rashtriya Kishore Swasthya Karyakram. Their services did not end as the pandemic continued. Or we had many more who were working voluntarily. And given the entire strain on government system, you could see that many people from community volunteered to provide these services, be it relief services, be it basic, health services. So I just want to say that the definition of frontline health workers or frontline workers got much more expanded during COVID, and it spanned over not only traditional government sector, but also NGOs, community, and even volunteer sector. And whatever I'm planning to talk today, hopefully I'll be able to flag issues across all of these. And the health sector is not going to suffice to, cater to all the needs. So we'll have to consider this expanded definition for sure.
And also the important point to note, I guess, Aparna, is that the pandemic was unique in a sense because you had the health workers, in a sense, having to face up to similar insecurities and
Yeah.
anxieties, isn't it? As
True.
everyone else.
True. And that was a very, very unique kind of issue. That whenever the frontline health workers are working, there is a distinction between their own realities and those of the clients or patients that they are serving. And here was a very, very unique situation that all of us and all the health workers, as well as the clients that they were meeting, were undergoing a similar traumatic event, right? And while the trauma, the ill health of the patients was highlighted, similar suffering that was quietly being, sort of encountered in their personal lives. It was not just the fear of COVID. It was not just the anxiety. It was not just the burnout, but it was also violence in their homes. It was also the financial worries. It was their children who were worried about their academics. So it was a very interesting event for the whole world in some sense, and definitely for India, that this was a shared trauma, and one group's trauma was highlighted, but the frontline health workers, we saw stories of flower petals being thrown, and they felicitated, but invisibilized at the same time, because their worries, their suffering was very, very silent and was not addressed.
Nerine, could you talk about how this really compounded, in a sense, the anxieties of the frontline health workers that you observed in urban settings like Mumbai, where at a time and access to information, medical help, PPE kits was such a problem, and they were expected to step out of their homes, address the needs of the community, and as Aparna pointed out, deal with their own anxieties about exposing their families. What kind of stress did you observe? What kind of pressures did this put?
Sure. Thank you, Shai, and thank you, Austin. I think Mumbai, as we all know, Mumbai has very dense informal settlements. And what really happened is when the COVID outbreak happened, suddenly all these health workers were inundated with so much of responsibility. And these responsibilities were not easy. And especially in urban slums where social distancing was focused on, how do you maintain social distancing? And even for the health workers to be able to go and communicate about social distancing was really hard. I mean, how do you tell people not to have social distancing? So that created a lot of stress on them, not only on the frontline workers, when I say community health workers by MCGM, but even Sneha frontline workers who were continuously working found it very difficult to manage this. And at the same time, like Aparna mentioned, so much of trauma, it was very traumatic to go, and they were expected to go through the lanes and by lanes and trace contacts of COVID. I think it really became a very traumatic period for them. And at the same time, what happened was they were inundated with so much, but at the same time, on the other hand, there were no support structures. There were no support structures where they could go and debrief or talk about it. So it was all contained by them. And I think yet in Mumbai, the COVID warriors, I'm talking about Dharavi, they did an amazing job. Within 2 months, we were able to contain the whole COVID infection in Dharavi.
How did you reach out to your cadre of work, of community health workers at this time when there was no physical meetings? I mean, it must have taken some time to get this whole virtual thing going. How did you keep their spirits up?
Yes. So in the beginning, it was incomprehensible to do virtual work. So we all found it very difficult, our counselors, our frontline workers. But what we did was we provided them with laptops, we provided them with data, and we immediately started training them so that, and most important was contact. You know, when you work in a physical space, you don't need to take phone numbers because you're going every day and talking to them. So I think the whole point of working through technology initially was to get the phone numbers of our beneficiaries and our clients, which was quite difficult. So we had to rely on a pool of our volunteers who were living in the community who would go and get phone numbers. So, and at the same time, not only this, but giving an assurance and support, because their mental health also was affected. Like Aparna said, so many of them were undergoing violence in their own home. And we've had instances where they have been not allowed to go out of the house or even for medical care. So in this time, Sneha supported them through counseling services being provided. Continuous meeting and monitoring and support was very important at this point of time.
So Gracie, I want to come to you because along with Care India, you have been conducting extensive emotional resilience programs since the pandemic last year in Bihar. What were the sort of experiences, what were the sort of fears you were hearing from workers there? What were the insecurities they were sharing with you, the stresses they were experiencing?
So actually, much before the pandemic, Costone was aware that there was a gap in what was being done for the frontline workers. That while there was a lot of training focused on frontline workers providing services, there was nothing in terms of their own well-being or emotional resilience. So we were talking to CARE about developing a resilience program for them. And we started talking to the frontline workers. That's when the pandemic happened. So we actually, and it's a pandemic that actually highlighted that this is so necessary. And we spoke to the frontline workers there. And actually, it's very similar to what you've heard from Aparna and Nerine about violence that they were facing. They were facing, no support from family sometimes. The families were very upset because they were going into the community when the COVID was happening there. And also from the community itself, the hostility, there was some, their families were even beaten up in some cases because they were trying to follow up on the travelers who were coming into the villages, following up on the quarantine. So they had to face a lot of stressors. And then apart from that, as you've already heard, anxiety about, their own family and children and being exposed, and the fear that they would get ill. And then, of course, not having the right support in terms of the equipment safety equipment that they required. So these, and as you've also heard Aparna and Nerine say, no, sir, who do they talk to? So they had to there was so much pressure on doing what they had to do. So there was no place, no people, nobody whom they could talk to and say, this is my problem. And we took this opportunity, spoke to the frontline workers and developed a 6-session curriculum, which we actually trained the block level officers from CARE, who then transacted along with other training. So at that point, in the rural areas, the frontline workers are still moving around and meeting their block level officers. So they met them, and as they trained them on other aspects, they had these sessions related to how do you manage stress and emotions, and how do you kind of recognize your strengths, and how do you reach out to each other for support. And these sessions really helped them to deal with the stress that they were facing during the pandemic. So yeah.
In fact, like I mentioned earlier, we were hoping to have some frontline workers join us, unfortunately, because of some technical glitches. And like Aparna, and all three of you pointed out, some of them had talked, Sita, in fact, she's a Sneha frontline worker, who talked about how, there were these fears that because people who had died of the virus, the bodies weren't coming home, and loved ones weren't getting to perform the last rites. So these were things that were being talked about in their homes. And so there was obviously worry about, communicate about transmitting the virus to their families. And at the same time, having to go out and ensure that the message went down to the community, that they stayed safe. But we do have with us Mamta Kumari, who's joined us from Muzaffarnagar. Now, before I ask her the question, let me introduce her. She is an ASHA facilitator, and Mamta has been, in fact, a part of Costone and CARE's outreach initiative in Bihar. As she deals with 20 ASHA workers in Balor and Kishnupur blocks in the Kurhani block of Muzaffarpur district. She's an ASHA facilitator with the National Health Mission Program, and she joined the NHM in 2006. ममता, thank you हमारे साथ बात करने के लिए। हम आपसे जानना चाहते थे, पिछले साल जब महामारी का जो बिल्कुल लॉकडाउन का सबसे एक तरह से पीक में था, आपको किस तरह की कठिनाई हुई कम्युनिटी में जाके लोगों के साथ अवेयरनेस बढ़ाने में, या किसी तरह की कोई भी जो भी हेल्थ इनिशिएटिव्स हैं वो काम करने में आपको, और जो बाकी के जो आशा वर्कर्स हैं उनको किस तरह की तकलीफ हुई थी?
जी मैम, जैसे लोग अपने क्षेत्र जैसे मैं उन लोगों को
I think there is an audio issue. We'll go back to Mamta when the line is clear. But in the meantime, we'd like to play this video for you, where we have voices from on the ground of ASHA workers sharing some of the stresses and anxieties that they experienced during the pandemic. If we could have that video now. Okay, while we wait for that video, let me just bring up our next poll question, which really looks at what are some of the key stressors affecting community health workers during the pandemic. Is it community resistance? Is it inadequate support from the administration? Is it the risk of exposing family and ensuring personal safety? And is it the burnout due to work pressure? So in the meantime, I'd like to, while the audience answers, we have a participant, Rampal Singh, who has posted what he thinks are the stresses health workers face. One is working long hours, always fear of getting the infection, and worried about their families as they might pass on the infection to the family members. Thank you, Rampal, for sharing those views. So, well, there you have it. He's in fact reflecting some of the issues that we have flagged here as well. But I'd like to get a sense of what do you, I mean, they all are obviously factors contributing to stress, but which one do you think is perhaps the biggest factor, the biggest stress factor for health workers?
Hello.
The highest according to our audience is the risk of exposing family and ensuring personal safety. Yes, that was the lack of PPE kits, etc. certainly added to that. We do have Mamta now on the line. Mamta, आपको हमारी आवाज आ रही है अभी?
जी आ रही है।
अच्छा, तो ममता बताएंगे आपको क्या डर था महामारी के वक्त, आप जब कम्युनिटी में जा रही थी, लोगों को जाके आपको जब अवेयरनेस बढ़ाना था, क्या डर था आपके मन में? पीपी किट्स इतने नहीं थे, कुछ माहौल बताएंगे?
उस समय तो बहुत,
बोलिए
उस समय बहुत डरावनी माहौल था। जब उस समय इतना डरावनी माहौल था कि जब हम लोग आते थे तो घर के लोग डरते थे कि कहीं हम लोग को हो ना जाए कोरोना। फिर में भी सब लोग डरते थे कि हाँ ये हॉस्पिटल से आ रही है, अभी है कि बाहर से भी आ रहा है उससे टच होने पर ये कोरोना हो जाता है। सब लोगों के मन में बहुत
Unfortunately, connectivity seems to be really a big problem, and that's sad because we really wanted to bring out the voices of the frontline health workers through this webinar. हाँ ममता, आपकी आवाज कट रही है बीच में।
जी मैम, ये थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम है।
अच्छा ठीक है, बताइए, अब बताइए, अभी थोड़ा क्लियर है, आप बताएंगे? तो ये डर था कि परिवार में किसी को हो ना जाए,
कहीं कोरोना ना हो जाए। जी जी, और क्षेत्र में भी सब लोग डरते थे, लेकिन हम अपनी आशा दीदी को मनोबल बढ़ते हुए उन लोगों को अपने साथ लेकर चलते थे। पहले तो आशा दीदी भी नहीं निकलना चाहती थी क्षेत्र में, लेकिन जब हम आगे बढ़े तो उन लोगों को भी अपने साथ लेकर आगे बढ़े कि हाँ चलिए, कोरोना कोई ऐसी अति नहीं है। हम लोग अपना सेफ्टी रखकर मास्क सैनिटाइजर का यूज करते हुए।
So Mamta talks about how at that point they were battling with the same fears of transmitting the virus, as Rampal Singh, one of our participants, also expressed the fear that they may bring the virus home, that they were going out into the community, into hospitals, and that left them feeling very vulnerable. We, like Mamta, we have a video now of ASHA workers talking about their fears and stresses during the pandemic, during the subsequent lockdown. Let's hear them speak.
कोरोना काल में हमरा सके ई शिक्षा प्राप्त भेलै कि हमसे डिलीवरी कराबे जाइए, ऑपरेशन के लिए कहे जाइए, तो लोग कहे कि रे अलग हॉस्पिटल से ये कोरोना पटा देता हूँ कि न निहलऊ न धोलऊ न सैनिटाइजर कलकऊ न साबुन से हाथ धोलकऊ आ ये घुस गेलौ घर में जे वो एकरा से अलगे रह जाइए। हम सब गेलिए क्षेत्र में सर्वे करे के रहा कोरोना के, तो एक महिला भी एक परिवार के यहाँ पहुँचलिए, तो एगो दीदी मिल थी, तो ऐसे तो जाइत रही तो चाय पीलू, दीदी बैठी नाश्ता कर लू, सब दीदी घर में घुस गए, गेट लगा लेलथिन आ कुर्सी रहे तो कहबो न करथिन, तो हम ऊपर बैठे गेलिए अपना मन से कि बारिश हो बैठ जाए, तो बैठलिए या हमसे जब बारिश छुटल तो निकल के चले लगलिए, तो दीदी हाली हाली कुर्सी धोए लगलथिन कि कहीं से अलग घूम के छिछिया का कोरोना पटा देता हूँ।
मैं शुरू में गाँव में काम करने जा रही थी, उस समय लोगों को डर बना लगा था कि कहीं आशा दीदी अस्पताल में जाती है, इनके माध्यम से कहीं मुझे कोरोना की बीमारी न लग जाए, और मुझे भी डर लगा रहता था कि मेरे माध्यम से मेरे घर वालों को या फिर मेरे आस पड़ोस के लोगों को भी बीमारी न लग जाए, इसलिए
So there you had ASHA workers from Bihar, Muzaffarpur Nagar district, talking about the community reaction to them. Many of them were called corona carriers in a sense. They weren't allowed to enter the homes. They had to stand outside and convince families to adopt, to be careful, to tell them that, you know, these are the ways to stay careful. So they're really putting themselves at risk, going out every day, getting that message across. So the pandemic has opened conversations around mental health, long working hours, and the increased workload that frontline health workers have come under. But the fact is that there's not much has been done to address this. To begin with, we don't even have any comprehensive official data regarding the toll the pandemic has taken on the mental health of frontline health workers. And that is important given that we are facing a surge, and perhaps for the workers today, it's an even more critical time because the fear, the larger anxiety that was evident last year amongst the people, the general population, doesn't seem to be there because people are out and about, unmasked, not really observing the social distancing protocols. So if anything, this is a time when the frontline health workers come under even further pressure. Some studies suggest that 25% of health workers are suffering from depression, while 70 to 80% are distressed, which has the potential to turn into depression if not resolved. Now, these are really, really troubling numbers. Nerine, when you look at the numbers, of course, these are not pan-India. These are very localized studies in a sense and can't really be seen as representative, but they are indicative of the need to address, to build emotional resilience among frontline health workers. What are some of the gaps that are there in investments that are needed to build this resilience? What do frontline health workers need in terms of a system to speak out? What are the gaps?
Sure. So I think the first gap is not enough financial stability is there. So there needs to be more finances being put into this order. Better compensation is another thing. And look at the varied range of functions that they perform. But in accordance to that, their compensation is not really so much. Third is there is a lot of talk about trainings with ASHA workers and frontline workers. But our experience in Sneha has been that when we actually did trainings on emotional resilience, for example, our STARS program trained ICDS workers on emotional resilience. We trained our counselors and our barefoot workers on emotional resilience. I think that is something which is missing in the system. So you may give them a lot of knowledge-based training, but unless that knowledge has to be rooted into some kind of an experience, I think that is a bigger gap. And that experiential training might just help them to perform better. And the last thing is what we saw in the pandemic was the strength of ASHA workers or community health volunteers is not enough. So either there are more community volunteers who help them, who assist them, and that's what Sneha Frontline Volunteers did. We actually supported our ICDS workers and community health volunteers in EHR distribution and anthropometry and in providing condoms and other things. So I think these are the major gaps that we can look at as a whole system and not put ASHA workers in a spot and say, okay, you are supposed to be doing this. They need to have a wider support system.
So both Gracie and Aparna, both of you, in fact, in the aftermath of the pandemic, started specific interventions reaching out to frontline health workers. Gracie, if I could ask you first, in the lack of support that Nerine refers to, how did it make its impact felt in rural small town settings? And what did Costone do with care to address these gaps?
So just like Nerine said that, the frontline workers, we already knew the lack of support that they had. So we worked very closely with Care India and developed this whole program where we trained their own block officers who are their supervisors. And these supervisors then conducted this program for the ASHAs on how do they really deal with their emotions, the difficulties that they're facing. How do they support each other? How do they kind of, even their own attitude and perspective around the problems that they're facing? And, things like how can they handle things that are under their control? And how can they let go of things that are not under their control? And really making them look at it from a very different perspective and teaching them the skills that they require. So this was a very short pilot program that we kind of tried, and there were lots of difficulties when we were, in order to roll it out because the pandemic was happening. But the block level officers themselves, who were supervisors, it had an impact on them because they realized that they needed to change their communication skills to be able to kind of support the ASHAs, and the ASHAs themselves are able to then use these skills to support each other and also to communicate back to the supervisors and others to garner support for themselves. So this is the kind of intervention that we actually weaved in the stories that we got from the ASHAs. So it was made relevant to the ASHAs by taking a story of an ASHA herself and how she goes through certain problems within the community. Like no support from family, no motivation because she doesn't know what to do. So we took this story of the ASHA herself and weaved it in. And through that, we taught these ASHAs certain resilience skills, which I think, had impact on how they were able to then handle stress.
In fact, Aparna, I wanted to ask you, this larger lack of structure and support led you, in fact, to expand ICOL's scope, isn't it? Could you talk a little bit about that, the special helplines that you started? What was the response? What were some of the learnings or reactions you found there, which perhaps came as a surprise even to you, despite your vast experience in this field?
Sure. So ICOL is a field action project of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and we were running this helpline. It's a national level helpline run by trained professionals, multilingual, and running for 9 years. It's free for community. But during the pandemic, we realized that while we were providing services to the general community, whoever was working for the community was unfortunately feeling unsupported. I also got a request somewhere in the chat कि आप बीच में हिंदी में बोलो, so I'll try to blend a little bit of Hindi with English.
Yeah.
तो हमें लगा कि जो लोगों के लिए काम कर रहे हैं उनकी बातें सुनने वाला और उनको सपोर्ट देने वाला कोई प्लेटफॉर्म नहीं है, इसलिए कोलैबोरेशन विद UNFPA we started a helpline called स्वास्थी. जो स्वास्थ्य कर्मी है उनके स्वास्थ्य के लिए चलाई गई हेल्पलाइन, इसलिए वो स्वास्थी. And we started it in the month of May and continued till 31st of December. हमारे यहाँ इस हेल्पलाइन पर 525 कॉल्स आए. 50% औरतें, 50% मर्दों से आए, पूरे देश भर से आए. जैसे मैंने कहा कि these were not calls only from health workers but also from everybody who was working at the community level, government programs, non-governmental programs, but frontline workers essentially. And it's interesting to see what are the issues that they were talking about. थोड़ा ये मेंटल हेल्थ शब्द का मुझे थोड़ा सा एक बातचीत इसके बारे में करनी है कि हम जो स्टडीज आप बता रहे थे कि इतने हेल्थ वर्कर्स को एंजाइटी हुई, इतने वर्कर्स को डिप्रेशन हुआ, तो कभी कभी जब हम ये आंकड़े देते हैं तो ये हो जाता है कि हेलो, या am I audible? Yeah. Fantastic, right. So sometimes, when we give these figures, it feels like the problem is with the health worker. Whereas जब हमने ये calls सुनना शुरू किया, तब हमें पता चला कि they were talking about definitely anxiety, depression, trauma, sleeplessness, role conflicts. But the stressors that they were reporting are more interesting to listen to. While the impact needs to be tackled, the stressors also give us a lot of learnings. And these stressors can be divided into 3 or 4 categories. Yeah, one was related to self, whatever were their fears, whatever were their anxieties. But a large number of their stressors were coming from organizational, structural barriers, as well as interpersonal or familial barriers, and not individual barriers. Yeah? They were related to not having front end workers did not feel
Aparna's, unfortunately, we're not able to hear Aparna's audio. We'll come back to her because she's making a very, very important point about the kind of lack of support that frontline health workers experience. But I'm happy to tell our participants that Dr. Sunil Babu has been able to join us. He's the Executive Director, Health and Nutrition and Chief of Party Bihar Technical Support Program for Care India. He has managed public health programs in multiple states and at the national level, and has worked as a consultant with organizations like the World Bank and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Thank you, Sunil. It's good to have you here. So just a short while ago, I don't know if you were on when Gracie talked about the program that was rolled out across 14 districts of Bihar. Could you talk about the experience of these programs? What were the specific stressors or challenges that were identified that the training programs went into? How did they help empower the Ashas and the Asha facilitators?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here. Sorry, I joined a bit late. I don't have the context, but definitely I heard about what Gracie spoke about, this training and the association with care, which is what you referred to just now. So our approach to work on this particular kind of engagement with frontline workers and taking help from Corestone to build this personal strength of, I don't know if that is the right word to use, but of frontline workers, which usually what we refer to frontline workers are Ashas and Anganwadi workers, and to some extent the ANMs as well. तो इन लोगों का पर्सनालिटी एक अपने आप में बेटर बने, इसके लिए पैंडेमिक कॉन्टेक्स्ट से अलग भी, अलावा भी हम लोगों ने सोचा हुआ था और उसी हिसाब से बातचीत शुरू किया था. वो इट बिकेम अ लॉट मोर रिलेवेंट और कॉन्टेक्चुअली अप्रोप्रिएट व्हेन ये पैंडेमिक हुआ. तो उस दौरान में जो नीड असेसमेंट्स एक्सरसाइजेस भी कुछ किया तो पता चला कि फर्स्ट वेव के दौरान में स्पेशली काफी सारा अनसर्टेनिटीज की वजह से किसी को ज्यादा कुछ पता ही नहीं था। ऐसे कॉन्टेक्स्ट में फ्रंटलाइन वर्कर्स को कम्युनिटीज में बाहर जाना पड़ा। आप लोग बात किए होंगे उसके बारे में ऑलरेडी। तो उस टाइम में वो लोग बता रहे थे कि हम सभी रिलेट कर सकते हैं विदाउट हैविंग एनी लाइक फॉर्मल ओरिएंटेशन ट्रेनिंग, कोई हैंड होल्डिंग नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है। इवन टू वेयर अ पीपीई किट उनको दे दिया गया, उसको कैसे सही पहनना है। बहुत सारों को तो मास्क तक नहीं मिला। तो क्या हम सही कर रहे हैं नहीं कर रहे हैं, ऐसे वाला स्थिति में उन्होंने जिस तरीके से बाहर जाना पड़ा परिवार में सभी लोगों को रिस्क पे डालते हुए, that they mentioned as something which is stressful to them, या उन्होंने वो वर्ड यूज नहीं किया स्ट्रेसफुल करके, बट घबराहट, मतलब हमको ये घबराहट है कि हम क्या हमारे परिवार को रिस्क में डाल रहे हैं, हम बहुत रिस्क ले रहे हैं इसकी वजह से। और इसके लिए कैसे आप एक दूसरे को कैसे हेल्प कर रहे हो, मतलब कैसे आपको जानकारी मिल रहा है, हाउ आर यू फाइंडिंग व्हाट टू डू व्हाट नॉट टू डू। तो उन्होंने जो बोला कि यूजुअली आपस में एक दूसरे से बात कर पा रहे हैं, एक आशा दूसरे आशा से, या अपने सुपरवाइजर ब्लॉक लेवल के लोगों से किसी से बात कर रहा है। कोई फॉर्मल ओरिएंटेशन एक्सेट्रा ऑर्गेनाइज भी नहीं हुआ था शुरू के दिनों में। उसी दौरान में हमने देखा तो इन लोगों के लिए किस तरीके का हेल्प करना चाहिए, स्पेशली टू फील कॉन्फिडेंट अबाउट व्हाट दे आर डूइंग एंड mechanisms. उसके बाद में within few months there were these large scale virtual trainings that got rolled out. Zoom का माध्यम से बहुत सारे लोगों को काफी सारे चीज पता चला, और उसके subsequently जब लोग मीटिंग्स सभी करने लगे और इवन वर्चुअल सेशंस में भी उनको अपने आप का कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ाने के लिए किस तरीके का अपना स्ट्रेंथ्स पहचानना कैसे है, अपने वीक एरियाज कैसे पहचानना है, और मुझे अपना आसपास के लोगों में से मेरा और कौन लोग हैं जिनके साथ मैं हेल्प ले सकती हूँ, एसोसिएट हो सकती हूँ, इस तरीके की चीजें। और अपने फैमिली को कैसे कम्युनिकेट करे कि वो लोग जो कर रहे हैं वो कितना रिलेवेंट है, which also reduces to a great extent their own levels of stress. अपने लोगों को बताना कि मैं क्या कर रही हूँ, ये कर रहा हूँ, वो भी एक काफी इम्पोर्टेंट एलिमेंट होता है। तो इस तरीके की चीजें सबको मिला के एक वो भी कोविड के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में वर्चुअल स्पेस में भी, और उनके रेगुलर मीटिंग्स जो मंथली मीटिंग्स होते हैं उस दौरान में एक्सरसाइजेस करके उनको ये स्किल्स देने का एक एक्सरसाइज किया गया, जो कॉर्स्टोन के साथ मिलकर एक इनिशिएटिव लिया।
तो फीडबैक क्या था, मतलब ट्रेनिंग्स के बाद क्या चेंज इन्होंने एक्सपीरियंस किया, फैसिलिटेटर्स ने क्या शेयर किया उन्होंने आपके साथ?
ये एक तरीके से आई डोंट नो, हम लोगों ने ऐसा नहीं किया इनको कि स्पेसिफिकली इसी को फोकस्ड ट्रेनिंग्स जैसा नहीं किया। उनके ऑनगोइंग मीटिंग्स के अंदर में या कुछ और टेक्निकल कंटेंट के बारे में जो ट्रेनिंग्स हो रहे थे उन सेशंस के बीच में ये एक्सरसाइजेस को, इस तरीके का एक रिफ्लेक्टिव प्रैक्टिसेस को बिल्ड किया, जिसके बारे में एक मीटिंग, यूजुअल मीटिंग पैटर्न में एक सडनली एक डिफरेंट एक्सरसाइज हो जाता है। और जो ट्रेनिंग में जिस तरीके का डायडैक्टिक टीचिंग मेथोडोलॉजी से जो चल रहा है उसके बीच में एक पार्टिसिपेटरी एक्सरसाइज हो जाता है, जिसमें लोग सब अपना कुछ अंदर की बातें निकाल पा रहे हैं, एक रिफ्लेक्टिव टाइप के प्रैक्टिस हुआ। दैट इटसेल्फ पीपल वर एबल टू रिलेट टू एज ए डिफरेंट थिंग। और उसके बाद में जब वो सब्सिक्वेंट इंटरेक्शंस में भी जो फील्ड के लोगों से जो पता चला, स्पेशली हम लोगों का ब्लॉक मैनेजर स्टाफ जो है, और उस दौरान में कुछ कोऑर्डिनेटर्स थे, कम्युनिटी हेल्थ कोऑर्डिनेटर्स थे, इनसे जो पता चल रहा है, दे आर फाइंडिंग इट वेरी यूजफुल इन इंटरेक्शंस विद द family members, their own family members, as well as with their clients, community members से interact करते हुए भी थोड़ा confident and different approach से वो लोग कर पा रहे हैं, ऐसा पता। इसका कोई ऐसा डेटा मैं नहीं बता सकता हूँ, because we haven't done any that kind of a post evaluation data collection so far, but that is something that we have in the radar and we should be able to do that.
So I can see Aparna has come back to us and she's shifted to another room. Thank you, Aparna. So you were talking about the larger there's the shift in the way we look at this. If you could just elaborate on that.
So मैं कहने की कोशिश कर रही थी, sorry first of all for the technical glitch. मैं कहने की कोशिश कर रही थी कि जो उनकी एंजाइटी, फियर, स्लीपलेसनेस, ट्रॉमा सुनाई दे रहा था, उसके पीछे के जो कारण थे वो उनमें स्थित नहीं थे. They were not situated necessarily within their brains or within their psyches alone, but they were somewhere in the structural barriers, जो workplace barriers थे, जो काफी सारे पैनलिस्ट ने ऑलरेडी बातचीत की है, जो कम्युनिटी के साथ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हो रहा था. और हम लोग एक मास डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की बात कर रहे थे, बट व्हेन आई वाज टॉकिंग टू स्पेसिफिक मुस्लिम हेल्थ वर्कर्स और फ्रंटलाइन वर्कर्स फ्रॉम सर्टेन कास्ट, then their experiences of discriminations were further complicated. पैसे का सवाल है, wages का सवाल है. It was expected of them that they continue to work selflessly without forgetting that their self itself was undergoing a lot of trauma. We also received calls about sexual harassment at workplace, or the superiors not understanding their plight, especially the gendered nature of their stressors. जो औरतें हेल्थ वर्कर्स थी या फ्रंटलाइन वर्कर्स थी, उनको काम की तरफ भी देखना था, पर घर की ड्यूटीज भी थी. घर वाले हो सकता है कि समझ नहीं पा रहे थे, तो दोनों तरफ से वो कहीं पर एक बीच में फंसी हुई महसूस कर रही थी. तो इंटरपर्सनल और फैमिलियल भी काफी सारे प्रेशर्स थे, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और स्ट्रक्चरल सोसाइटल स्टिग्मा. और तीसरा बड़ा हमारा एक लर्निंग रहा कि हम मेंटल हेल्थ की हेल्पलाइन तो चला रहे हैं, बट पीपल वर सेइंग दैट लुक, आई डोंट हैव टाइम टू ब्रीथ, वेयर आर यू टॉकिंग अबाउट माय मेंटल हेल्थ? So we had to really pull back and first of all do one or two important things. One, simplify mental health, because mental health, I'm a mental health specialist, and I know that it is a mystified topic. It is not simplified in a manner that everybody can understand. So हमें कुछ ऐसी मटेरियल बनाना पड़ा जो वर्नाकुलर लैंग्वेजेस में है और जो लोगों तक पहुंच सकता है. दूसरा, ये बताना पड़ा कि मेंटल हेल्थ का जो स्टिग्मा है उसको कहीं पर हमको बाहर रखना है. Because how can I be a health worker and my mental health is affected? How can that be the case? So we had to really deal with that issue. The third one is provide a confidential, anonymous service whereby they could table their own issues. And the kind of solutions that you are giving them will definitely be some simple self-care tips, some simple interpersonal strategies that they can, but also structural and organizational strategies, because we realize that by putting the onus of mental health problems on the frontline workers or health workers, somebody who is already burdened, we are putting the entire burden of resolving and recovering also on them. So these were some of the interesting lessons. So we created a lot of material. And the last thing I want to say, कि while their mental health was affected, they were reporting one more very, very fascinating, important finding, which we had not thought of. जब वो लोगों से बात कर रहे थे, तब उनको पता चल रहा था कि मैं हेल्थ के मैसेजेस तो पता है मुझे, शायद मुझे, उनमें भी बहुत कंफ्यूजन था कि कोविड के लिए क्या करना चाहिए. Although they were giving messages, they themselves felt ill-equipped, but they also realized that they were dealing with the mental health of the patients that they were working with, and they had some training on how to do health work, but no training on how to do mental health work. So during that entire year, we actually launched several capacity enhancement programs which can integrate mental health into their everyday work in a seamless manner, so that mental health is not treated as a vertical program in a silo, but becomes a cross-cutting issue across all the work that the frontline workers were doing. So these were some of the fascinating learnings for ICOL also.
I can see Gracie nodding very, very strongly. It's something that she's talked about a lot, but there's a question here which has been posed by a participant, which I wanted to throw open to all of you. Someone called Divya Bharadwaj, who has agreed to what you said, Parna, about the point about, using the term anxiety, depression, and situating the mental health issue of an FLU internally. She also says there needs to be a shift to look at the socio-structural and organizational factors that are external contributors. What this may help with is HSS, better organization, stronger local, block, district cluster functioning by looking at district units to really take care of the frontline health workers. If I could go to you with that, Gracie, do you agree with that? Do you feel that there needs to be a shift, a broader look at such
Definitely.
an organizational approach?
Definitely, I actually agree with Aparna, and that's why I was nodding my head. And as I've all said in the past, that we have to change the language around mental health, and integrate it within the systems, like you said, at different levels, at the block level, and we actually saw that happening. So it's not rocket science; it can be done. Where you talk about mental health from a well-being perspective. I've said this earlier, and I find myself repeating it. You talk about it not from a deficit model, from a strength-based model. And when you talk about it like that, the stigma doesn't need to be dealt with, because then they're looking at it from a different angle. And of course, you acknowledge that, people can feel distressed, people can feel, that they need help. But really, when you bring it from you change the narrative and the language around mental health, like Aparna said, and integrate it within the system, I think that will make a huge, huge change, and create. I think that will create the whole everything around mental health can change if we
change the
follow.
Conversation really, and the way we look at it. Do you agree with that, Narine? Do you feel that there needs to be a change in the organizational approach?
Yes, I think so. And I think what is important from my other two panelists have said is mental emotional hygiene. In COVID time, there was a lot of focus on hygiene as such. Wash your hands, do this, do that. But at the same time, I think if we move to focusing on how maintaining emotional hygiene is equally important, and that is again not really focusing on what is wrong, like anxiety, depression, but focusing on what can be done better, I think it will really change the landscape. And we did that in Sneha. We did a lot of workshops with the police, with the healthcare providers, with the frontline workers on how in such times you can maintain your emotional hygiene.
Sunil, would you agree with that? Because you are looking at a program that you've rolled out across 14 districts of Bihar. You're saying you're planning to scale it up. Do you feel there needs to be an organizational approach rather than a piecemeal where you just look at certain, like a more of a counseling approach, not a counseling approach, but a more broad-based approach?
I think मेरे को ना ये जो भी अभी हम बात कर रहे हैं, all this needs to be probably, I don't know if this is right, conceptual framework में भी होता है कि नहीं, एक तरीके से capacity building के part मानना चाहिए इसको. This is एक हर individual का अपना capacity, not just to deliver a program, but अपने आप को conduct करने के लिए, अपने environment से interact करने का capacity, ये सबके साथ में या इसको बढ़ाने के लिए this should be looked at as part of building capacities, which usually, at least हम लोगों के context में मैं बोल सकता हूँ, हम capacity building बोले तो एक technical training के को हम मान के चल जाते हैं, that is capacity building. ऐसा नहीं है. There are several other things जैसा transferable skills, कुछ communication skills और time management skills etc. सिखाने का कोशिश करते हैं as part of capacity building. उसी के पैकेज के अंदर में ये भी एक कंपोनेंट होना चाहिए, which some may call it as part of mental health वाला, mental hygiene वाला हो सकता है, बोल सकते हैं, या कोई resilience वाला बोल सकते हैं. So अगर वो बड़ा एक कैपेसिटीज, इंडिविजुअल के कैपेसिटीज एनहांस करने के फ्रेमवर्क में डालते हैं, लीडरशिप स्किल्स बिल्ड करने का, लीडरशिप वाला उसमें भी एक काफी यूजफुल रहेगा इंक्लूड करना. नहीं तो यूजुअली मिस हो जाता है. वी टॉक मोर अबाउट प्रोग्राम मैनेजमेंट स्किल्स, टेक्निकल मैनेजमेंट स्किल्स एंड डेटा हैंडलिंग, कम्युनिकेशन थोड़ा बहुत, ये सब बात कर लेते हैं. ये एक पर्टिकुलर कंपोनेंट है जिसको मेन स्ट्रीम करना चाहिए, ऐसा मैं सोचता हूँ.
Narine, could you talk about some of Sneha's key interventions during the pandemic? Your organization played a very key role in enabling ICDS workers. And now today, when we're looking at a surge across the country, Mumbai, of course, is among the places most affected. What is Sneha currently? How is Sneha continuing in this role what are some of the interventions it's continuing with?
Sure.
Specifically regarding enabling frontline health workers.
So I think, as I said, they don't have enough support, and Sneha has played a role of bridging that gap and providing the support. So we will continue in the pandemic. We help community health volunteers reach out for ration distribution, for contact tracing. We will continue working with ICDS workers and building their resilience, helping them with anthropometry testing, THR distribution. We will continue doing immunization camps and whatever activities we do. I think what we have also done is weaved in the whole aspect of mental health and resilience. So all our workshops that we carry out, it has a component of mental health resilience for the frontline workers. And of course, the counseling helpline, which has been running and which has been open for, it's the COVID mental health helpline, which is often used. The uptake is good by the frontline workers.
We've had a lot of actually interesting responses coming from participants. So I'm raising this next question. Again, there is no one answer to all. This is really to gauge which one perhaps is needed more. And one of the question is, how can we build resilience to ensure the mental well-being of our frontline workers? Is it 1, training on self-management skills? 2, is it leveraging tele-counseling? 3rd, is it informative education materials on building resilience? 4, is it facilitating peer support groups? Which of these do you, as participants, which ones, after listening to all that our experts have said, which of these do you feel would be a more effective approach to reaching out to this diverse cadre of frontline health workers we have across India to ensure their mental well-being? What do you feel is the best way forward? Okay, so while we wait for the answers, I'd like to raise a question which has been posed by one of our panelists, who said that, as our panelists have rightly said, the entire responsibility of fighting the COVID recovery rather is burdened on the frontline health workers. How effective will it be if there will be systematic division of work and strict supervision and administration in relieving the stress of frontline workers? I'd like to ask Aparna that question. Aparna, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to adopt a more ecological way of looking at it. That stressors are situated at multiple levels. Yeah, जो हमें उस वक्त ज़्यादा strategies दिखाई दिए वो self care, resilience वाले strategies थे, which gave a loud and clear message that your mental health is your responsibility. That's why I'm trying to broaden the conversation by saying that मैं आपको बताती हूँ कि हमने जो capacity enhancement for frontline workers के कार्यक्रम किए उस वक्त as to how to provide mental health and psychosocial first aid, पहला हमारा session self care का रहता था. And that used to really resonate with all frontline workers and health workers, because they felt that, before telling us how to serve others better, you are telling us how to serve ourselves better. You're prioritizing us, you're visibilizing us. And that was so overwhelming. So, मैं ये नहीं कह रही हूँ कि उनको self-care strategies की ज़रूरत नहीं है. Many of them did use all of those strategies, and they felt equipped कि मेरे हाथ में कुछ है कि मैं अपने मानसिक स्वास्थ्य के लिए, well-being के लिए कुछ कर सकती हूँ. But many also said that that is not sufficient, because you are telling me that nothing can be done about all those stressors that are impacting me on an everyday basis. मेरे family में जो चल रहा है, मेरे organization में जो चल रहा है, इतनी छोटी चीजें. Of course there is salary, of course there is infrastructure, but people used to say that if my supervisor just gives me a call and asks me how was your day, how are you dealing, when I say organizational responsibilities, there are infrastructural, economic, compensation, all of those things are there, but creating a culture of care, creating a culture of regard and recognition is also extremely important, because ये लोगों को पता है कि शायद ये काफी मुद्दे जो है structural है, वो लंबे स्तर पर लड़ाइयाँ है, वो चलने वाले हैं, पर बीच बीच में कोई रुक के अगर हमें पूछे कि आपका दिन कैसा रहा, आपकी फैमिली कैसे रही, because I'm asking those questions to my patients, to my community, but there is not a single person asking those questions to me. So even an informed leadership. Now we have an entire program called National Mental Health Program. How hard it is to integrate and create some space within our NMHP and DMHP to not only serve the community, but also serve those who are serving the community. So I'm saying that, you know, something has to happen at a more sustainable level. COVID has actually impacted us in the worst possible manner, but it has also created some best opportunities because it has highlighted the needs of this neglected community, this neglected group. And I'm just saying that structural measures will go a long way beyond COVID also in addressing some of these barriers or stressors.
I'm going to come back to you, in fact, because you've talked about mental health care being in silos and a more integrated approach. And I wanted to learn from you a little bit more about that. But first, let's take a look at how our audience has responded to the last poll question. So it's really not, I mean, 41%, and that's the highest, feel that self-management skills are very important, followed by facilitating peer support groups. That's 39%. And the last, of course, 17% is the third, informative education materials on building resilience. Telecounseling has got the lowest at 3%. So Aparna, you talked about how it's so much in silos. When you talk about mental health, if we were to use the word mental health, and there's a need for an integrated, cross-cutting approach, how do you see this working given India's diverse, you know, the diversity? How could you, some brief pointers about how this would work in your opinion?
Sure. So I definitely, I think ये pandemic के वजह से एक चीज हुई कि उससे पहले लोगों को लग रहा था कि mental health is an issue of a small minority who are suffering from mental illnesses. I think the pandemic, which was not at all the case, mental health is a continuum. It ranges from illness to wellness and maybe somewhere around stress and distress, and all of us experience mental health or mental distress also. But the pandemic brought home one point, that everybody has a mind, everybody has mental health, and everybody's mental health was impacted, and therefore it became a very, very visible issue. Otherwise, it was, you know, sort of delegated to people who were suffering from mental illness. But what I mean about, I mean, talk about integrating mental health. आज अगर आप देखो कि तो सरकार का एक हेल्थ मिनिस्ट्री का प्रोग्राम है, नेशनल मेंटल हेल्थ प्रोग्राम, या आपका डिस्ट्रिक्ट मेंटल हेल्थ प्रोग्राम, जो मेंटल हेल्थ का काम करता है, पर सरकार की या सिविल सोसाइटी के हजारों बाकी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम से जो बच्चों के लिए चल रहे हैं, औरतों के लिए चल रहा है, ये अलग अलग मार्जिनलाइज सेक्शंस और वल्नरेबल सेक्शंस के लिए चल रहे हैं. ये सारे जो प्रोग्राम्स है, इवन civil society programs, are for people. And the minute you talk to people, regardless of the kind of stressor, it could be a water issue, it could be poverty, it could be any other violence, it does impact your well-being in some or the other way. And if you look at the numbers, there are 170 million people in this country who require immediate mental health care, and we have less than 9,000 psychiatrists and even lesser number of mental health practitioners. So when I say that mental health cannot be talked about in silos, it has to be integrated through all these services that are reaching people, who are vulnerable, marginalized, in distress of some kind, and building capacities of all frontline cadres, because whatever said and done, specialists don't reach communities. It is the frontline workers who reach the community, who know the culture. So that is the integration.
Okay.
And the well-being of the...
So we have last comments from our speakers. If I could come to all of you for quick recommendations going forward, starting with you, Sunil. You've rolled out this intervention program. You're saying that it's working, the plans to, you know, you think it could be effective long-term, going really beyond just a pandemic sort of response. What are some of the recommendations you would say going forward when we look at building emotional resilience?
Yeah, I think as other panelists also have alluded, we should integrate this kind of capacity building into the overall capacity building of frontline workers, not just the ones who are at the community level, but even at the hospital level staff also, create opportunities to deliver this kind of capacities to them, introspect and to build their own individual resilience, and also enhance their ability to interact with the people around them. So that's something that at scale it should happen, and that's what I think as a way forward for us.
Nareen, what would you say? If there was one key suggestion, what would you say?
I think my suggestion is to integrate mental health resilience, not only through trainings in the program, but also through different modes like CHVs and frontline workers getting an opportunity to talk about their experiences. Young women, young frontline workers becoming leaders and making an impression in the community. I think these are the things that will motivate this harder, and this kind of integration can look at positive mental health rather than looking at stress. Is what I think.
Before I come to you, Gracie, for last comments, I'd like to bring up this comment by our participant, Pradeep Joseph, who says, I think facilitating peer support group would be a better long-term strategy in context to mental health and mental distress of frontline health workers, as they also need time to feel refreshed. Thank you, Pradeep, for that comment. So if I could come to you, Gracie, going by your own experience in Bihar, and there are plans, of course, to scale this. What would you say are maybe 3 key takeaways or 2 key takeaways? We are, of course, now entering, we are in the 3rd wave. It's again a big crisis on us. But on a long-term basis, what would you suggest?
So 3 takeaways are, first of all, I agree with my panelists that, but we have to, at the policy level, it's important to acknowledge the need for building these skills and integrating mental health within different programs, and especially for the frontline workers. That's the first thing. The second thing is then to find out how we can do this, how we can integrate it within the systems. So if there are certain systems in place for frontline workers, then how do you integrate well-being, developing well-being and giving them the skills within that system, which involves also their supervisors. Very important, because it has come up, sometimes the supervisors and the communication that they have causes stress. So really focusing not just on the frontline workers, but the system, which includes supervisors and the frontline workers, and integrating that. And finally, as someone said, the peer support groups. How do you get these group mechanisms, and how do you develop these group support and these mechanisms within that system? So training, programs, group support, I think all these different ways could be kind of integrated, and that's how we could build the well-being of our frontline staff.
So I think the fact is that, I think the pandemic has brought home the realization that healthcare systems can only be maintained if the people on the front lines, our health workers, are healthy, are engaged, are resilient, and have the ability to cope with their own call it fears, anxieties, concerns, and the workplace stresses, etc. And that is really, it's important to look at building a continuing system, not something which is knee-jerk, which comes in response to a stress that's voiced, not respond to a stress as such, but really an enduring system that could come. Unfortunately, we wanted to hear more from our frontline health workers, but connectivity issues came in the way. Otherwise, we had, in fact, voices from the community sharing their stresses, what their needs are, and what they need really in terms of the kind of support they're looking for, be it from the authorities or from their families or from the larger community. But thank you all so much for being a part of this discussion. Before we go, we just wanted feedback from our participants about this webinar, about the experience. Do let us know. It will help us improve going forward. So do take the time out and let us know, share your feedback with us. And if you have any questions at all, you can reach out to our panelists, to our experts today who've taken part. Their email IDs have been shared on the chat box. I think it's about to be shared. You can reach out to our participants for more information. And thank you all for taking the time out today, and thank you for putting up with the technical issues and for continuing to the end. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Thanks for writing, and have a lovely evening, and take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
so much.
Have a lovely.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.